Prayer memorials are held across Queens for a fallen Catholic detective. I'm Emily Juby, and coming up, we'll speak with one of the officer's friends.
Pope Francis blesses an unborn baby in the womb as the late-term abortion debate rages across America.
A Queens baker makes some Valentine's Day treats for the less fortunate. I'm Tim Harfman, and I'll have the sweet story coming up.
Plus, he captured world attention when he appeared in a plastic soccer jersey dedicated to his hero. Tonight, the 7-year-old is facing danger. The news starts right now.
The sympathies and prayers of the entire New York City Police Department with the family and colleagues of Detective Simonson tonight.
And emotional Police Commissioner James O'Neill delivering bad news. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. Detective Brian Simonson shot dead in a tragic case of friendly fire. The Catholic NYPD veteran was responding to reports of an armed robbery in Queens. When he got there, bullets started flying. Currents News' Emily Druby reports the heartfelt sorrow that's being felt over the loss.
An emotional moment, Polo Savillon tending to a memorial vigil for Detective Brian Simonson, who was killed in the line of duty Tuesday night.
It's hard to know that you see somebody every day who's actually humble, who has that down-to-earth instinct, to know that they're not going to be here tomorrow.
Savillon works at the deli just around the corner from the 102nd Precinct in Richmond Hill. He says Detective Simonson was a regular fixture in the shop and beloved in the community.
Brian took the time out of his day to just acknowledge your presence, just to make sure you're doing good. You know, you probably could have been a troublemaker in the neighborhood. He was still going to say hi to you. He was still going to make sure you're okay. Are you safe? Yeah, I'm good.
The morning after the shooting, Savillon and his co-workers closed down the deli for an hour-long prayer vigil to honor the 42-year-old officer.
Everybody said a prayer here and there, but it was just mainly a moment of silence for him because I feel like he at least deserved that.
Detective Simonson was shot by friendly fire while responding to reports of an armed robbery at a T-Mobile store near 120th Street and Atlantic Avenue in Richmond Hill, Queens. Officers shot at the suspect, Christopher Ransom, who had a fake gun in his hands during the shooting. Detective Simonson was hit by friendly fire.
Make no mistake about it. Friendly fire aside, it's because of the actions of the suspect that Detective Simonson is dead.
The suspect was shot several times but is expected to survive. Detective Simonson was rushed to Jamaica Hospital Medical Center but died from his wounds.
This is an absolute tragedy, the worst outcome any police officer or family of a police officer could ever imagine.
Monsignor David Casado, Deputy Chief Chaplain for the NYPD, was at that hospital helping Detective Simonson's fellow officers and family cope with the loss.
Big police officers all breaking down in tears. That's one of their own. That's one of their own, and it's part of the family. And it was a very, very, very sad moment.
But Monsignor Casado says prayer has a lot of power during a moment of loss.
And we prayed together the Our Father. And you could see there a sense of peace come over. And the power of prayer, I think, is the sense of God being with us at this moment.
Detective Simonson was a 19-year veteran of the force and is survived by his wife and mother. Liz?
19 years, Emily. So heartbreaking. Are there any other further plans to honor Detective Simonson?
So funeral arrangements have not yet been announced, but Governor Andrew Cuomo did order flags across the state to be flown at half staff today.
All right, Emily, thank you so much for that report. New Jersey's 5 Catholic dioceses today released the names of its priests credibly accused of sexual abuse. In total, 188 names are included on that list. The Archdiocese of Newark has the most at 63. The other dioceses range from 56 in Camden to 11 in Metuchen. A majority of the priests are deceased. One name appears on 2 lists. Ex-Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. Cardinal Joseph Tobin of Newark issued a statement saying, quote, "The list of names is the result of an extensive review of archdiocesan records dating back to 1940. All names were previously reported to law enforcement agencies." Brooklyn native and Bridgeport Bishop Frank Caggiano has a new and forceful video where he talks about clerical sex abuse.
The crime and sin of sexual abuse in our midst is a deep evil that has created a deep wound. And you and I have been working together to not simply rid ourselves of this evil, but also to stand with those who have been victimized, those who have been hurt, those whose lives sometimes have been completely shattered.
Bishop Caggiano added, getting rid of the evil of abuse is not enough. Loving support must be offered to those who have been victimized. Bishop Caggiano is speaking out ahead of the upcoming Vatican Summit on Abuse Prevention. The Pope is summoning bishops worldwide to attend. For more on what's expected from the highly anticipated session, Melissa Butts is standing by in St. Peter's Square.
With only a week to go before the Summit on Sexual Abuse, hope and expectations are rising, even after Pope Francis on the papal plane back from Panama told journalists to deflate their expectations. Yet we spoke to the Pope's main collaborator for this meeting, who tells us just how high they really should be. Father Hans Zollner is one of 4 clergymen appointed by Pope Francis to organize the Summit on Sexual Abuse beginning February 21st. He says while expectations have been swinging high to low, the mission has always been clear.
I think the understanding of the committee that is preparing this event and this meeting, as well as the Holy Father's one, expectations are that we do what will be possible now in 3 days and a half. We will have to choose. Our focus for this meeting, and that was clear from the beginning of the planning, was the systemic side, the structural side, the institutional side of abuse.
In order to cover these well, Father Zollner said topics have been chosen for each day.
First day, responsibility of a bishop with regard to how to deal with victims, how to deal with perpetrators. Second day, accountability, to whom is the bishop accountable to, or the provincial, to whom does he report and who can help him, hold him accountable. And the third day about transparency to the people of God and to the public.
With these points, they're hoping to answer difficult questions such as why and how there was abuse and cover-up for decades that went unreported within the church. Father Zollner repeated that while the meeting is only 3.5 days long, expectations should be high, as this will have repercussions for all areas of church life. Let's wait and see. At the Vatican, Melissa Butts, Currents News. Back to you in New York, Liz.
All right, thank you, Melissa. We're getting new details tonight about that White House meeting between President Trump and Governor Andrew Cuomo. Behind closed doors, the two men were together yesterday at the governor's request. He wanted to talk about the impact of caps on state and local tax deductions. Trump, according to a spokesman, criticized New York's new abortion law that Cuomo signed last month that removes virtually all restrictions on abortions. Tonight, the president is giving strong hints he'll sign off on that bipartisan congressional deal to keep the government open and set aside some money for the border wall. Kristen Holmes has the latest from Washington.
D and E and F.
President Trump signaling he'll sign a bipartisan deal to keep the government open.
I don't want to see a shutdown. Shutdown would be a terrible thing.
Despite not liking it.
I appreciate all the work the Republicans have done because they're really going against a radical left.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill sounding confident while tweaking the final proposal.
The overwhelming majority of the House Democratic caucus will support this legislation.
The agreement includes $1.375 billion for a border barrier, lower than the $5.7 billion President Trump originally demanded for the wall, and even lower than the $1.6 billion included in the Senate proposal rejected by the president in December. But Republicans are urging the president to sign off anyway.
I told him, I said, Mr. President, this is only a down payment on the wall. I said, they said you weren't going to get any money. We did get you some money.
The White House not making any promises on behalf of President Trump.
We want to see what the final piece of legislation looks like. It's hard to say definitively whether or not the president's going to sign it until we know everything that's in it.
Aides saying the president is continuing to weigh his options to fund the border wall outside of Congress, including taking executive action. In Washington, Kristen Holmes, Currents News.
The latest now on the crisis in Venezuela. Pope Francis has reportedly responded to Nicolas Maduro. The embattled ruler has asked the Holy Father to mediate the power struggle between the regime and opponents. An Italian newspaper reports Francis wrote in a letter to Maduro that past attempts by the church to settle the crisis failed because there was no concrete follow-up from the two sides. The Pope said he favors a negotiated settlement, but he's not in favor of talking for the sake of talking. The man who claims he's president of Venezuela is issuing a deadline.
Anunciamos entonces que el 23 de febrero
Juan Guaido saying that on February 23rd, humanitarian aid will be shipped into Venezuela. Right now, it's blocked at the border by the government. Guaido didn't explain how the supplies will get in. New tensions with Iran are the main focus of a major summit meeting getting underway in Poland. This live fire drill was staged for U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He's leading the U.S. delegation in Poland. More than 60 other nations are taking part, including generals from NATO. Besides Iran, the leaders will talk about the fight against ISIS and the violent instability in Syria and Yemen. One of the big tests for the summit, Iran's ballistic missiles. The Islamic State is building and launching them in defiance of the United States. Fred Plankton has more from Tehran, including details of a once secret missile factory.
Iran flexing its military muscle, launching ballistic missiles which the Islamic Republic says have become more lethal in past years. At this arms expo in Tehran, a spokesman for the elite Revolutionary Guard Corps praising the weapons. The Islamic Republic of Iran is able to respond on the same level to any threats against it, he says. On display, ballistic missiles with ranges up to 2,000 kilometers or almost 1,300 miles, capable of hitting targets in many places in the Middle East. Hossein Kanani Moghadam is a former senior Revolutionary Guard commander who used to meet regularly with Ayatollah Khomeini. One of our policies to counter the sanctions is to expand our missile program, he says. This is exactly the path we're following. The more they increase the sanctions, the more we will boost our missile capabilities. For the first time, Iran recently revealed video of a secret missile assembly factory. The U.S. says Tehran is breaching UN resolutions by bolstering its missile programs, a claim the Islamic Republic rejects.
The Iranians say their missiles are vital to this country's defense, and they say that they have every right to not only maintain, but to also enhance both the range and the quality of their missile arsenal.
Israel says Iran's ballistic missiles are an unacceptable threat to its security, and the Trump administration has hit Tehran with crippling sanctions, also citing its ballistic missile program. National Security Advisor John Bolton ripping into Iran's leadership.
Iran continues to seek nuclear weapons to intimidate peaceful people all around the globe and ballistic missiles to use as delivery systems.
Iran denies seeking nuclear weapons, but it's not backing down from its missile program, a major factor driving the confrontation between Iran and the U.S.
Two key NATO allies are not attending the summit, France and Germany. There's a lot more news headed your way showing great heart for Valentine's Day. A Catholic baker is heading to the streets to help make the day a memory. The little soccer fan who ignited social media worldwide with his devotion to a star is facing an ominous future. And the Pope talks to thousands about the one word not in the Our Father. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@thesalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back.
She's an angel from above. She really is.
She's a Catholic baker who is dedicated to making Valentine's Day something special for those who need a lift. This Valentine's Day, Lisa Cottagio will go out on the streets to make a difference. Currents News' Tim Harfman has the heartwarming story.
Lisa Cottagio owns Grandma's Cheesecake Sandwiches, an online-based company, and she wants to help those who have fallen on hard times.
It's always been my biggest fear that I would wind up homeless myself. I just think it's very important that we help them.
So the Bayside Queens baker made 150 of these heart-shaped pastries for Valentine's Day. Using her grandmother's recipe, cherry-filled cheesecake is sandwiched between 2 cookies and topped with chocolate. They're baked with love.
I don't have my own Valentines, and I figured a lot of homeless people didn't have a Valentine either, so I thought maybe I could be everyone's Valentines this year and make some people feel better.
Lisa's first stop, the Long Island Railroad Station in Babylon. 55-year-old Thomas Ridington has been on the streets for 8 months. A former baker himself, he's trying to get back on his feet. He describes how Lisa's gesture makes him feel.
Special, you know, we're on the street here, so it's nice that someone come by and give us some food.
A Catholic himself, Thomas says he turns to local parishes for help. To him, Lisa is a godsend.
She's an angel from above. She really is.
Growing up a parishioner at St. Fidelis Church in College Point, Queens, Lisa attended Catholic school there. The faith-based education instilled values leading to her good deed.
My Catholic faith played a tremendous role in this. It's just, they teach you in Catholic school to be caring and humble and to help the less fortunate.
These are little heart-shaped cheesecake sandwiches.
At nearby St. Patrick's Church in Bayshore, it's lunchtime in the soup kitchen. Lisa brings dessert.
It's a beautiful spirit, and she's blessed for doing it, and I'm blessed for receiving it.
Lisa plans on passing out more treats in Midtown Manhattan Thursday, just in time for Valentine's Day.
They're human just like we are, and people need to remember that.
On Long Island, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
To help vulnerable women and girls worldwide, the church is teaming up with the United Nations. They're emphatically declaring that freedom from all forms of sexual violence is a fundamental human right. According to the UN, 200 million females have suffered genital mutilation, which Secretary General Antonio Guterres says is just one concern.
The violence can take many forms, from domestic violence to trafficking, from sexual violence in conflict to child marriage, genital mutilation, and femicide. It is an issue that harms the individual, but also has far-reaching consequences for families and for the society.
Another UN official, Sister Sheila Kinsey, says the international community and large corporations need to defend human dignity. An update tonight on the Afghan boy who captured notice around the world when he was seen playing soccer in a homemade plastic bag jersey dedicated to his pro hero. Now the child is facing a much different and dangerous future. Nick Patton-Walsh reports.
Fame has a totally different price in Afghanistan. Meet Murtaza, aged 7. His bid to emulate his football idol, Lionel Messi, with a plastic bag as a football shirt and a handwritten number 10, went viral over 2 years ago. He got this signed shirt and even met the Argentinian star in Qatar. But this is a story of unintended consequences and how celebrity in Afghanistan doesn't mean paparazzi or footballers' wives, but threats and fleeing your home in the night. Soon after Murtaza's fame, the Taliban attacked their village. The Taliban were killing our relatives, he says, and they were searching houses. I told my mother to take me somewhere else. We weren't allowed to play football by the Taliban or even go out of the house. We used to hear the sound of heavy machine guns and Kalashnikovs and rockets at home. His father took them to a nearby city, but had to stay behind to fight. The last time I saw my father, he says, was on the first day we came here. Then he went back, and I haven't seen him since then. Even here, they live behind closed doors, says his mother, Shafika. It would have been better if Murtaza hadn't gained fame, she said. He spends all of his time here, inside the house. Not only the Taliban, but some other groups have started thinking that Messi might have given him a lot of money. We stopped sending him to school because we were being threatened all the time. She appeals again to Messi to help them leave Afghanistan. But their story is just one in the spotlight, where there are millions of displaced here in the growing darkness. Murtaza hails from the Hazara minority, often persecuted by the Taliban and fearful of their ascendance in any peace deal with the Americans. In Kabul, I cannot go outside the house, he says. My mother doesn't let me go out, she's afraid. I only play with my friends inside. When I was in my hometown, I couldn't wear my Messi jersey because I was afraid somebody would hurt me. I want to be taken from this country because there's fighting here. I want to become a football player like Messi and play with Messi. Caught now, like much of the country, in the gap between how much foreigners are willing to do to help and what Afghans need.
No word yet if Messi is aware of the plight of Murtaza and his family. It's hard to believe, but the father of a 10-year-old student insists that's what his son heard. A substitute teacher claiming the death of Dr. Martin Luther King was a suicide.
It's just flabbergasting. It knocked me out when he said that. When he said, she said that Dr. King committed suicide. I'm like, what book is she reading? This lady just, started talking about if you don't believe in Donald Trump, that you're not a Christian. I'm going to see her removed from every school system in the entire country.
The music class sub was filling in at North Carolina's Rand Road Elementary School. The school district was investigating the case until the teacher turned in her resignation. Still to come on Currents News, the one word that is not in the Our Father and what Pope Francis has to say about it. And a little boy doing everything he can to make his dreams come true, even without his 2 feet. We'll be right back. While several states across America are locked in debate about the trend to enact laws that open the door to late-term abortions, Pope Francis greeted thousands of pilgrims at the Vatican this morning, including a very special one, this unborn baby. While meeting the faithful, the Holy Father blessed this woman's pregnant stomach, signed the doctoral thesis of a priest from India, and even gave this child a rosary. In his talk to the audience, he asked about what's not in the Our Father.
Qual è la parola che manca nel Padre nostro che preghiamo tutti i giorni? Manca la parola io. Una volta un cappellano di un carcere mi ha fatto una domanda. Mi dica, padre, quale è la parola contraria al io? E io ingenuo ho detto tu. Quello è l'inizio della guerra. La parola opposta all'io è noi, dove c'è la pace, tutti insieme. Un bel insegnamento che ho ricevuto da quel prete.
The Pope concluded his catechesis with a final blessing in which he wore a special stole made by indigenous women. Cardinal John Henry Newman will be canonized a saint, likely sometime this year. Pope Francis cleared the way for the renowned Englishman to be raised to the high altars, authorizing yesterday a miracle attributed to the intercession of the cardinal. Newman was an Anglican priest who later converted to Catholicism. In the 19th century, he became one of the world's most important religious figures. No date has been set for his canonization. A 6-year-old boy with significant disabilities has one dream: to be a wrestler, and he's making it happen. Nick Trotter was born with only a left hand and no feet, but he refuses to let anything stand in his way. He's joined a wrestling team where he has already won 3 tournaments. His father says he always finds a way to do what he wants.
And there's times he's asked that, how come I don't have feet? How come I'm missing a hand? But he doesn't let it bother him. He knows that he's special and he knows he can do everything. Kids ask him all the time, what happened? And he'll say, well, God made me this way, And
Nick also loves to participate in other sports like baseball, swimming, and jiu-jitsu. And he is also now my new superhero. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.